Thank you, Jago. He's naughty because actually, if anybody is second most important after the Archbishop of Canterbury, it's definitely Jago Wynne. He's got my vote for a bishop, don't you think? I mean, I know you don't want to lose him, but come on, the Church of England needs him. In all seriousness, yes. Don't we? Actually, that's fine. In all seriousness, Jago and Susanna, we love you guys. And the last time I came to visit, I declared to you that Tom and I decided to be adoptee congregation members for Holy Trinity Clapham. I know that that's not official, but basically, we just love you. And we feel so at home, and we know so many of you from different walks of life. And I just think it's a really amazing thing to come away together as a church like this. Has it been a good weekend? Yeah, sounds like you had so much fun. I think Jago was completely got last night, I hear, with foam and all sorts, really honouring your lead as well at Holy Trinity Clapham. But for those of you I don't know, maybe like you, I didn't actually grow up in a Christian household. I'm the fourth daughter of 4 girls, can you believe it? Actually, poor Tom is so surrounded. We've got 3 daughters, we've got 2 single mothers-in-law, I've got 3 sisters, I think they're kind of 9 nieces, So Wilbur, our dog, is like holding up the male end of the family, and named after Wilberforce, literally. But I didn't grow up a Christian, but at age 13, we hit a major crossroads in our life. I loved my mum and dad. We had a wonderful home. I lived in London. But my dad one day disclosed a secret life that none of us could ever have imagined. And quite frankly, it devastated my mother. It devastated me. And our lives were really never the same again. And it was quite a colourful secret life. And for me as a teenager who adored my dad, suddenly realizing that the person that I trusted almost the most in my life was untrustworthy, I completely lost my compass. I was like, well, if I can't trust him, what and who can I trust? And I suppose for me, I spiraled downhill. My 2 elder sisters were leading the Mystic Society at Cambridge University, as one does, and they were like, Sarah, don't worry, you've got to keep going because your next life is going to be better. You don't want to come back as an ant, so you've just got to keep going. And do you know, kind of mentally, I was like, okay, I see what they mean. I've done something bad in my past life, so in my next life, I've got to have better. But you know what it's like 2 in the morning when you're in bed alone? That gnawing sense of just loss and rejection and emptiness. That didn't solve it. And I was at Church of England School with Carolina, who's here. And we were there, and if you remember, we had a wonderful chaplain, but unfortunately, he was an alcoholic, and he used to pass out. And so we'd be like, yay, he hasn't come, we got a free period, free lesson. And for me, I just thought that was Christians. They're so flaky. Honestly, they're saying that Jesus loved you. And we were going through seriously tough times at home. Home that was once safe was suddenly unsafe. It was volatile. It was like unimaginable how different it all could have changed. And my mum got very sick. She ended up in hospital. So I used to go and do my homework in hospital after school. And I said to her, Mum, listen, I know I'm coming up for confirmation because we all have to get confirmed at school. I can't do it. The guy, he passes out and doesn't make our lessons. I said, but they're just so weak. And we're strong, we're going to get through this crisis. And my mum, who wasn't a Christian, just said, darling, you've got so many questions. Won't you just find a church and go and ask these questions? And I remember thinking, that is the last place on the planet that's going to answer my questions. But, in my mind, I thought she wasn't going to make it, which she did. But I thought I would have done anything for her. So I remember just randomly finding a church in central London. And I came across Holy Trinity Brompton. And I called them and I said, do you have anything that I can come to you and ask some questions? And they said, yeah, we do. Why don't you come? You can imagine HTV. Lovely. Do come. And I remember thinking, can I wear jeans or not? It took me I nearly bottled. I nearly didn't go. And I remember coming through the glass doors that we have, very similar to yours at HTC, and coming in, and I arrived on this tiny alpha course of 30 people, and they linked it with confirmation. And all I can tell you is I experienced 2 things I never, ever expected. I encountered the love of people who were like so interested in me with my weird questions. They didn't know where I was from, where my family was, why I was asking about reincarnation, why I couldn't honor parents, what did that mean in the Bible. They loved me to the point whereby the former vicar said, "You've got so many questions as a young girl. Why don't you come and see me and my wife after school every Wednesday and ask all your questions?" I mean, would I do that for a 13-year-old now? I don't know, but I went. And then I encountered Jesus, and all I can tell you, because you're sitting here and you know it, when you experience that revitalizing, just that liquid love pour through you, when I was a broken, hard-nutted, traumatized teenager, and I experienced the love of God break every wall I'd built around myself, every bit of self-hatred and rejection. I tried to talk my dad out of trying to take his life, and I thought my narrative was he doesn't want to live because I'm not worth living for as a daughter. Those lies you believe, when that revitalizing love of Jesus comes and breaks through every lie, every label, every difficult circumstance that you have gone through in your life, and he comes in, it's like a big hug. It's like, welcome home. And I felt him holding me, saying, welcome home, Sarah. And boy, oh boy, did I cry. I mean, every single service for about 3 years, I go, I'm absolutely fine. Got my mascara on. And I'd go in and I'd go, rookie error, shouldn't have worn it again. Every single service, no matter what it was about. Because I experienced that revitalizing love of Jesus that can only transform us. Do you know that? There is nothing else like his power and his love. There is no therapy as good as therapy is. There is no counselor as good as counseling is. There is no life plan. There's no strategy. There's no relationship in your life that can mend that. Only the sovereign power and love of Jesus. And I want us to quickly look this morning at a story. And it's got two characters in this story, and how that same revitalizing power and love of Jesus comes into their lives at key moments. So we're going to read, it's a familiar story, Mark 5, verses 21 to 43. When Jesus had again crossed over by boat to the other side of the lake, a large crowd gathered round him while he was by the lake. And one of the synagogue leaders, named Jairus, came. And when he saw Jesus, he fell at his feet. He pleaded earnestly with him, my little daughter is dying. Please come and put your hands on her so that she will be healed and live. So Jesus went with him. A large crowd followed and pressed round him. And a woman was there who'd been subject to bleeding for 12 years. She had suffered a great deal under the care of many doctors and had spent all she had. Yet instead of getting better, she grew worse. When she heard about Jesus, she came up behind him in the crowd and touched his cloak. Because she thought, if I just touch his clothes, I will be healed. Immediately, her bleeding stopped, and she felt in her body that she was free from her suffering. At once, Jesus realized that the power had gone out from him. He turned round in the crowd and asked, "Who touched my clothes?" "You see the people crowding against you," his disciples answered, "and yet you ask, 'Who touched me?'" But Jesus kept looking round to see who had done it. Then the woman, knowing what had happened to her, came and fell at his feet, and trembling with fear, told him the whole truth. He said to her, "Daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace and be free from your suffering." While Jesus was still speaking, some people came from the house of Jairus, the synagogue leader. "Your daughter is dead," they said. "Why bother the teacher anymore?" Overhearing what they said, Jesus told them, "Don't be afraid, just believe." So we join the story with Jesus. Now, we're going to imagine setting the scene. He's been with his disciples. He's been on the other side of the lake. He's had a seriously heavy day. He's done some deliverance of the demon men. Remember that one? And now he's come back to his hometown. We're back in Capernaum. It's kind of been a day trip. He's probably quite weary. And as he comes with the boat to the shore, he sees a crowd. And there in the middle of the crowd is Jairus. Now, Jairus, he is an important man. Everyone knows Jairus. He's a synagogue leader. He's probably got great wealth. He's got great reputation. He's kind of the person who's kind of got it all together. You know, he knows what he's doing in his life. But there, I can imagine Jairus. He is waiting on the shores. He's probably looking out, thinking, is that Jesus' boat? When's he going to come? Because he has hit a major crisis. You know when out of the blue something comes? Have you experienced it? You suddenly get the call. You suddenly get the diagnosis. You can have it all locked down. Financial planning, strategy for the next 10 years, plans for your kids, whatever it might be. And suddenly out of the blue, it can all be derailed. I remember getting the first call when one of my sisters was doing a parachute jump, and the military office phoned us. She wasn't in the military, but for some reason she was doing it with the military, saying, we're just phoning to say your sister's parachute has malfunctioned and she's in critical condition in an army hospital. And you're like paralyzed with fear. You're like, what do you do in that moment? I remember getting the call that our 17-year-old nephew, they'd just diagnosed him with a brain tumor the size of an orange at 17. What do you do when those moments come to kneecap you and take you out? Well, Jairus knew what to do. He knew that in this moment of crisis, his 12-year-old was dying. He knew he was going to wait for as long as he needed to wait on that shore side, because he knew, and he said to Jesus, my little daughter is dying, verse 24. Please come and put your hands on her so that she will be healed. He knew Jesus. He knew just one touch from the master and his 12-year-old daughter would be healed. I wonder, do we have to wait for situations to be out of control by running straight to Jesus? Could we be the kind of people who say, I'm not going to wait till I'm desperate. I'm going to live in a posture of every day, every moment, every circumstance, saying to Jesus, if you don't come through, this is over. If you are not filling me with that light to shine in my workplace, if you are not in this relationship, if you're not in my singleness, if you're not in my grief, if you're not in my future career plans, then nothing. That total and utter dependency. And I want to encourage you today, whether you're feeling life is going quite well and quite sorted, you're in the exception, can I say? Most people I know have some serious challenge, or they know someone who's got some challenge. But why don't we make a commitment to say, I'm going to run to you first, Jesus, because I know only you can revitalize. And I wonder, maybe some of us have got things that we've left at home that are on life support. That actually, if Jesus doesn't play a house visit to us, things that maybe nobody else knows about us. Could be our finances. Could be an unhealthy habit that we can't break. Could be a prodigal child. It could be just deep disappointment, whatever it is. If Jesus doesn't pay that house visit, you know that thing's not going to be revived. So Jesus comes to Jairus and he says, of course, and they start walking. And he's walking at high speed and it says there's a huge crowd. Can you imagine? It's like a kind of, I was trying to think who it would be. It's like a celebrity like being mobbed. Like Justin Bieber is in town, everyone's around, or Taylor Swift, everybody is there. He's like mobbed, isn't he? On all sides. And somebody else is in the crowd. And we get introduced to somebody quite on the opposite spectrum of life. She has no name. She is not well known. She's not in the center of the community, quite on the contrary. It is this woman who's been bleeding for 12 years. And in that context, in that culture, it was a taboo to touch any woman who was bleeding. They were ostracized from the community. They couldn't be touched, they couldn't be held, they couldn't kiss their children, they couldn't eat with people. They'd have to live outside of the community. Now, she hadn't just had this for a few days. For 12 years, this woman had been suffering. And, medics suggest that with this condition, she would have been jaundiced, she would have been weak, her blood sugar levels would have been bad. This woman was sorely suffering, not only physically, but actually socially. She hadn't been touched by anybody for 12 years. Can you imagine? They did that test with babies, and they got 2 sets of babies, and they fed them exactly the same. The conditions were exactly the same. The only change was that one load of babies weren't touched. I think it was for a week or something. And, they must have been touched, but they weren't sort of cuddled and hugged. And they know that by cuddling and hugging, it stimulates the pituitary gland. And it basically, it moves forward their growth, basically. It encourages growth. And they did both, and they saw exactly that. The babies that had been cuddled and touched and played with were in a healthier position than those that weren't. She hadn't had any of that. Total confinement. And this woman hits rock bottom, and we don't know how she's heard about Jesus, but for some reason, something has captured her. And I want you to notice, she's identified by her problem. She's labeled the woman with the issue of blood. And how often are we identified ourselves with our inadequacies? I'm not successful enough. I'm not beautiful enough. I'm not capable enough. I haven't got the right pedigree. I didn't get the right schooling. I'm always going to be single, or I'm unlovable. Whatever those labels are that we place on ourselves. She identified with her problem, not with who God created her to be. What comes into your mind? Is it the inadequacies, which we all feel in some shape or form, or is it that you know that you are created by the God of the universe, that you are his precious son and his daughter, and you are named and you are chosen, and he has set each one of you apart with a purpose and with a plan? I wondered, maybe she saw Jesus come by, and it says that she comes up behind him. Do you think that she bottled it and thought, I just don't know if I can do it? Do you think she was undecided? Or do you think she was just so full of fear because the Levitican laws were such that if she touched a pure, let alone a rabbi, then they would be made unclean and she could be stoned to death? She was literally, this was her life, this was all or nothing. This was live or let die. Literally, this was the moment. Was she going to do it? Not being in a crowd, I wonder if the kind of agoraphobia, the fear of suddenly she's been isolated and she's with all these people, can she do it? And I like to imagine her just going, okay, he's going, I'm missing him, he's going. And the thing is with Jesus, if you haven't already learned this, which I'm sure you have, it is never too late. It was not too late for Jairus' daughter, as we find out, and it's not too late for this woman. And can I say to you, it is not too late for you. Whatever challenge you're facing, whatever circumstance, however many times this thing has just, whether it's tripped you up again, it's habitual, it is never, ever too late, because God comes with a fresh start every single moment of every single day with his revitalizing power. And I say power because that is what it is. It's the power of love. And there is no power close to it. There is nothing that can test with it. And so this woman comes up. And I've got a Jewish prayer shawl here. Some of you will be familiar with this. This is the kind of prayer shawl that the rabbis would have worn, but actually they would have had it right down to the floor, so forgive me, it's a bit short. But you'll know that in Numbers they talk about this tassel here, and each knot is kind of the law, the Torah, and they do the Shema, they go, "Hear, O Lord, our God is one," And so these blue bits with the law, and they literally would have it on them clothed in the word. It's like clothed in scripture. So Jesus is walking along. These are to the floor. And when Tom and I had the privilege of going to Lake Galilee, we went to the town of Magdala. And there was this amazing, massive mural that I hope we've got a picture of. And it's painted on one of, here it is. And it's just the woman's hand right at the floor of Jesus' sandal going to grab one of these tassels. It is that moment. And do you know, I like to think she is down low. Is she crawling on the floor? Is she that just trying to get to something of him? Knowing if I can just touch Jesus, maybe I'm going to be healed. And what does he do? Not only does he heal her miraculously, but he then says, Who's touched me? And do you know, I love the disciples. They are so gormless sometimes, aren't they? They're like, Jesus, what a question. Look how many people there are in this crowd. Who do you think touched you? You know, we're all jostling for position here. You know, he's like, no, because he knew the power from heaven, the power of the Holy Spirit, the same power that lives in you and me and that raised him from the dead had gone out of him. And he says, no, boys, who touched me? And she comes up. And what does he say to her? This amazing exchange. Do you see it? He says, daughter. He renames her. He doesn't just give her any name. It's belonging. It's family. It's reestablishing her in the community. It's saying, you are part of a family and you are valued and you belong. He gives her dignity. Do you know, he does it again and again. He does it with the woman caught in adultery. He does it with the woman at the well. Again and again, Jesus' way, this revitalizing love, it comes to transform everything. In this moment, this woman's life would never be the same. She was back in the community. She was healed. She was restored. And he says to her, daughter, your faith has made you well. Do you know that there is no circumstance, there is no condition that is beyond the touch of Jesus? You may feel that you've blown it. Goodness, I feel that quite frequently. But there is nothing beyond his revitalizing touch. And what does she do? She says, I'm going to throw everything at this. Whether I die and am stoned, I'm going after Jesus. And it's a challenge for you and me. Whether our life is secured, whether that crisis moment comes, whether we're living in the pain and the agony of the isolation, like the woman with the issue of bleeding. If we say to Jesus, as he walks by, I am grabbing this tassel for what it's worth. I am grabbing it to believe for my family. I am grabbing it to believe for my finances. I'm grabbing it to believe for healing. I'm grabbing it to believe that those dreams and those promises, Jesus, that you spoke to me however long ago, will come into pass, even though every circumstance tells me that looks impossible. I am believing it. If he's walking past today, what do you need him to do in your life? What is it? Are you going to grab the tassel? Are you going to let him walk by? Because he has the only power to transform. And what I love about this exchange, which I'm sure that you will know, is that Jesus himself should have been made untouchable by a woman who was dignified as untouchable at the time. But he does this cosmic exchange. He takes on her suffering, her shame, her sickness, and he takes it on himself, and she becomes pure. And friends, that's what he does for you and me every moment of the day. His love for us is so deep. He's saying, I don't want you to carry that shame. Give it to me. I don't want you to carry that injustice when that person betrayed you. I don't want you to ruminate over those awful texts that you got. Labeling you as things is not how I label you or I see you. Come on, let's do an exchange. And I believe today he wants to do an exchange with you. He wants to do business with some of us. He wants to say, it's time. Maybe nobody knows about it. It's time to deal with that unhealthy habit. It's time to stop believing the lies about yourself that your teachers told you, maybe even your parents told you, maybe that you just tell yourself. Don't you find the battle is in here? It's always in here. It's our self-talk that gets it. And he's saying, come. And do you know what? When we reach out to him, he never rebukes us. In exchange, he welcomes us. He embraces us with those arms of the Father and says, my precious son, my precious daughter, my beloved. Sometimes I think we can think, well, it's just for the holy, isn't it? That kind of radical lifestyle, I'm all in Jesus, and it's a little bit awkward at work when I'm like that, or a little bit awkward in my social life, or I'm never going to meet a partner if I'm like this, And, we can tend to think, God, I don't see you working. But can I tell you, I bet the woman with the issue of blood didn't see the kindness of God as she was going to Jesus to grab this tassel. I bet she just was about her business like any ordinary day. And she didn't see that centuries later, you and I would be talking about her. I mean, can you imagine? And I want to share a story a while ago. I've never forgotten it because I felt God taught me such a lesson. A while ago, I went to a party, and it was a friend's party, and it was on the other side of the city, and it was really great fun. And I got home, and as I got home, probably 1 a.m, I suddenly thought, oh, no, I've left my phone. I've left my phone at the party. And I was like, oh, Sarah, you're such a fool. Because I don't know about you, but I'm one of those sad people. I've got everything at the top of the diary, what I need to remember, and I basically can't function without it, is what I'm saying. And I know what I'm doing tomorrow. I'm not too sure about the next 2 days afterwards, but I literally always check it before I go to bed. So I was like, I'm not going to be able to function. And also, I'm so busy, I'm not going to have time to go and get it. So I thought, do you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to get back in the car. I'm going to drive over there, go and pick it up, job done, can start the week. Anyway, I'm halfway driving over there. And I don't know if you've ever had these conversations with yourself. I was like, so stupid, Sarah, this is really irresponsible. You're going to be so tired this week. And then I started thinking, oh no, what happens if I arrive and they've all gone to bed? And that's a completely wasted journey. Or I arrive at 2 a.m, they're like, what are you doing here at 2 a.m? Anyway, I thought I'm halfway there. And I said, okay, what I'm going to do, I'm going to keep driving. If the lights are on when I arrive, great, I'm going to knock on the door, grab the diary, and I'll my phone and go home. Anyway, if they're not, I'll just waste the journey. And anyway, I arrive, lights are on, hooray. So go knock on the door, and my friend answers, it was his party, it was his flat, and he basically looks at me like, Sarah, what are you doing here? And I was like, I know, I'm really sorry. I left my phone in the kitchen. Great party, by the way, And he said, no, but you are here. And I was like, yeah, because I left my phone in the kitchen. I said, I'm really bad. I'm sorry, really bad time. He's like, and he looked so shocked. And I suddenly thought, what's wrong with him? This is a really odd response. And so he's like, you better come in. I was like, so went and had a cup of tea in the kitchen, because we're good Brits, had a cup of tea, post-mortem about the party and who got on with who, and oh yeah, wasn't it great? And anyway, then he just paused, and I'd known him for 3 years, didn't know anything about this, and he just said, yeah, it was a great party, Sarah. He said, but, as people started to leave, I've never felt so lonely. And he said, I started to spiral down and down to a very, very dark place. And he said, I know we've got lovely friends. He said, but I felt so isolated that I got to the point that I just said to myself, I don't think there's any point me being here. I don't think anyone would miss me. I don't think my life counts for anything. And he said, at that moment that I had that thought, your face came into my mind. And he said, you're always so smiley and talking about your Jesus, which I wasn't too sure how to take that because, but anyway, I'm going to take it as a compliment. But anyway, I was like, am I? And he was like, so I said, okay, Jesus, Sarah's God, if you exist, I want you to prove to me tonight. I want Sarah to knock on my door tonight. Half an hour later, I went and knocked on the door. And do you know what? We cried together. He gave his life to Christ, and he's still going strong. But do you know what? What it taught me, I didn't go to him thinking, I'm on a holy mission from God. I've been sent in the darkest of nights across the city to rescue my friend. I was like really cross. I was really angry. I was grumbling. I was like, you're so stupid to do this. And I mean, no idea that in the sovereignty of God, he'd heard my dear friends cry, like this woman, like Jairus, crying out to Jesus. And Jesus could do nothing more than send stupid, foolish, grumbling me back in my car over to show him, I am real, and I am with you, and I love you, and I am for you. And you are named, and you are precious, and you have a future. And my power can overcome any depression, any circumstance, any failure. Your past does not define your future, because I define you, my son and my daughter. And let me fill you with that power, just like the woman with the issue of blood, the power. And do you know what, friends? When Jesus then dies to take our ultimate shame and every sickness and every disappointment and failure that you and I will ever experience, when he then raises again and is seated at the highest place, he then sends his spirit. That same spirit that touched Jairus' daughter. He goes on, doesn't he? I forgot to tell you that bit of the story. I'm sure you know that bit of the story. What happens? He heals the woman with the issue of blood, and then they come and they say, Teacher, it's too late. This 12-year-old girl has died. Do you think it's an accident that this woman has been suffering for 12 years, and here this 12-year-old girl is dying and dies? And yet Jesus says, have faith, believe. And he goes, and she's not just revitalized, she is brought back to life. This power, be under no illusion, it's not something to mess with. It is the same power that created the universe, the same power that hovered over the waters, that formed you and me. It is the same power that has a purpose for you, for your future, for your marriages, for your families, for your businesses, for this city, for this nation, for this world. And we have such a short time on this earth. Let's spend it being the people who run after Jesus and just grab hold of that tassel every time a challenge comes and say, I'm leaning in, Jesus. It's all or nothing. You come through or I'm done. If you don't transform this situation at work, I'm unemployed. Or I'm unemployed, you need to come through and find me a job. Or I cannot go through this cycle again one more year, Jesus. Come and fill me with your power. And he longs to do nothing more than that. What is that thing? If Jesus is walking by right now, you need him to touch. Should we tell him? We're going to grab that tassel for all we're worth. And we're not going back to our homes this afternoon without that transaction happening. You and I are not leaving here the same people that we arrived, because the power of the Holy Spirit is going to fill us. So should we stand?